Sam, need your help again.
Final segment with Cindy Sheehan. The website is cindysheehansoapbox.com. We're showing it up on the screen right now. Why don't you go to that, guys? And we were just talking about the myths over the break. I mean, you can't get enough of this woman over the break, folks. I'm taking it as I can get. She's exhausted. She's putting up with me. Thank you very much. We're talking about one of the myths that you dispel in this book. Mm-hmm. And one of those myths you just discussed is that, your son died for America and that he died for something good and true. And you dispelled that myth. You really did.
Right. Well, one of my myths is literally it's noble to die in robber class wars. And we all know that the wars are fought for the robber class, for profit, for power, for, this globalization like we talked about. They start the wars. They convince us that we have an enemy. And, just take Iraq. Like the people of Iraq are our enemy because the people of Iraq attacked us when? Mm-hmm. Saddam Hussein attacked us when? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we have an enemy and our children go and fight their wars, kill other people, die, and it's for nothing. Our kids might as well have uniforms on that have corporate logos all over them instead of a United States
And unfortunately, some of them do. I mean, the people that are working for Blackwater literally do have corporate logos, and you're seeing more and more mercenaries all over.
And they actually get paid a decent wage to do this. Mm-hmm. Our kids in the military are totally exploited. And any job that they do in the military, they can do it for more money outside of the military. But so anyway, the robber class starts these wars. Our children fight them, and they profit. Mm-hmm. But they whip us up into some nationalistic fervor. And people join for good reasons, but they're lied to. Mm-hmm. And, I might have been one of the first times when a so-called Gold Star mother, stood up and said, my son's dead for nothing. No reason, and I want you all to know that somebody very precious was killed for no reason by these liars. Mm-hmm. And so that really, a lot of people were, it provoked them to think more deeply. But a lot of people had this knee-jerk reaction that I was a bad mother. I'm a bad mother now because, somebody else killed my son. Mm-hmm. Or I'm unpatriotic. Again, whatever that means. Is it patriotic to torture people? Is it patriotic to start wars? Is it patriotic is the Patriot Act patriotic? So that label doesn't make sense anymore either. I think it's patriotic to stand up for truth, mm-hmm. to stand up for the rule of law and say nobody in this country is above the law.
And I have to agree with you, and you are such an inspiration to literally millions of people in this country and all over the world. Why don't you tell people how to mobilize? Because, again, there is that attitude out there where Cindy Sheehan's doing this, why do I have to? Jason Bermas is doing this, why do I have to? Alex Jones is doing this, why do I have to? And it's so key that we get more leaders in this movement, because I know I'm not the most articulate person. I know I don't have, everything at my fingertips. I'm not the best at everything. Mm-hmm. There are people out there much smarter, much better well-read, much more in a position to convey the message to the masses. So what do you have to say to those armchair quarterbacks or those people kind of sitting on the sidelines, not knowing what to do? How do they get involved?
Well, it's really, I'm going on a different way than I was before. It's useless to march in Washington, D.C. on a Saturday with 600,000 people. That's a lot of people, but what are you doing? Mm-hmm. You're just going to Washington, D.C., spending a lot of money, spending a lot of effort, marching around and, from point A to point B, and what have you accomplished? Mm-hmm. So my tack now is to create community that we can work together to help each other through, because we know the economy hasn't hit bottom yet. We know that we're up for some very scary times, and if we don't work together, the robber class is going to end up with everything, and we're going to end up with nothing. So it's to undermine their systems. It's to take our money out of banks. Stop using credit. If you have to have your money in an institution, put it in a local credit union. It's better off in your sock drawer, really, and for all the dollars going to be worth pretty soon, whatever. But read my book. My final chapter is called Conclusion Revolution. And it's a revolution of values, and it's a revolution that's very subversive to undermine the system. So instead of Jason and Cindy and Alex and whomever doing a lot of stuff, like running ourselves ragged, then everybody does a few things. And if everybody does a few things, it's way more effective than a few people doing many things. And we will start to siphon their wealth, siphon their resources, and make it more equitable, and then create our own systems. Then it won't matter who's president. It won't matter what Congress does. It won't matter what the police state does, because we have our own effective systems that it won't matter if the Federal Reserve, creates this hyperinflation, because we've created economic systems that will support each other and are not dependent on banks or the Federal Reserve.
And really, that's the last thing they want. The last thing they want is a community that can feed itself, that can clothe itself, that can house itself.
That can trade with each other.
Lakota Nation comes to mind. I mean, they're printing up their own currency. They're trying to go into that system, and that could be a model, for other communities around the country, and
I think
hopefully
we
the world.
may have to be forced into it, and with the collapse of the dollar and with the collapse of the empire, because the empire is going to collapse, right? So is it going to collapse on us, or are we going to be strong to be able to because we're going to survive, but are we going to survive in a society that takes care of each other, or are we going to be in a situation where it's 1984?
Well, I think
brave new world.
Well, unfortunately, I really do believe this. This is a conference that did it even end today? I think it ended. It may end tomorrow, but this is what's going on in Canada right now, adapting to a new world order. And the entire thing is all about sustainability. Top players in there. It's unbelievable to me.
That's what my thing is. Get off the grid. Food growing co-ops. Grow as much of your own food as you can. And like I said, work together. If it's just a family community, a neighborhood community, a city, a peace community, or whatever, without each other, I don't think we'll be able to survive.
For all the Austin listeners out there, where are you going to be tomorrow?
Wow, Brave New Books, I think.
Brave New Books? What time is that?
I think it's at 7.
7 p.m.?
I wish you wouldn't have asked me that.
That's okay.
I just go with the flow, I get in the car where they tell me.
And like you said earlier, you're broke. I mean, people don't understand. We barely get by doing this sort of thing. It's not like we have a huge audience. It's not like we have millions of dollars. I'm not rocking gold chains here.
Right.
I do this because I do believe in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. I do believe in free humanity. I do believe in free thinking. I do believe in dissent when the status quo, the establishment, is wrong.
Right.
And you talk about this in the book. The myths of this robber class.
Well, I think the status quo and the robber class almost always works against our best interests. Almost always. I think the only time when it works for our best interest is when it's in their best interest too.
Absolutely.
Right? When those interests coincide, and then, or accidentally a few crumbs will fall off their table onto us.
And those instances are really
rare.
Few and far between. Way rare. Few and far between.
Well, but look what Obama's been doing since he's been president. Just totally betraying his base, the people who got him elected, not doing anything that he promised when he promised something good, but when he promised to increase troops to Afghanistan, he's doing that. And the people in the movement should have integrity, because our politicians and the robber class don't. And so if we see if we realize that it's basically an us versus them and not an us versus us, that in their class there's no difference between Democrat and Republican. There's no difference. It's in anything, they're in it together to take all the wealth and resources from us. And what's the worst thing is we let them.
That is the worst part.
We pay our taxes. We send our children. We enrich them, and we're impoverished.
I agree in full, and I hope you do run for Congress again. I hope you win next time.
Well, you got to read my book, because one of my myths is that elections matter. There is not going to be any way that anybody like us is going to get into Congress.